What is up, everyone? JD here. I hope you're doing well today. We're going to be diving into the early front runners for Knife of the Year. Let's get into it. Okay, so I know we're way early, guys, but we've had so much happening this year. I wanted to just stop and take a moment and for myself, catalog and for you, share where I'm at with my picks for new knife of the year 2024 and what I have as my clear front runner. But before we jump into the ones that actually made it onto the list, I do want to talk about the ones that didn't make it on the list. And again, I know way too early for this, but let's talk about it anyway because I think we got some that may make it to the end of the year. First, we're going to do the honorable mentions. I know this seems a little odd, but I do want to honorable mention the Spyderco 2 Mannix Lightweight. No, it is not a new knife, guys. I know that it's not a new knife. This model's actually been around a very long time. But the reason that I do want to shout this one out is because of the fact that Spyderco made the wise choice to finally make this knife able to be disassembled. So I did want to shout that out. While it isn't new, it isn't something totally exciting and brand new to us. It is awesome. I think that you can now disassemble this easily and that we already have scale makers out there that are offering scales for this model. They jumped right into it, and these scales just, again, like the full-size Mannix, totally transform it because you can get these for the Mannix 2 with no liners, so they go linerless, and it does make it very thin and very lightweight. But it is not a new knife, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on that one. Let's go ahead and jump into some other models. So this next one here is the Kungu Padre. The Padre is not a new model either, right? It came out last year. Unfortunately, it was so popular and the demand was so high for this one that a lot of us were not able to get it until the second batch. I did get the satin version in the first batch, but I was really interested in checking out this stone wash. They do a really amazing stone wash. It gives it a more dark tone to the knife all throughout. I really especially love that stone wash on the blade itself. Nice big belly clip point, Damascus pivot collars. You got a really aggressive curved frame lock knife here with diamond milled pattern for texture and a titanium pocket clip with a geared back spacer. So just everything you see here is all about confidence in your grip, very confident, inspiring, and very nice big belly, super slicey. And Kungu just continues to do a great job. You got multi-row Delrin washers in the pivot, preventing you from needing to upgrade, in my opinion. Very smooth action, just a great looking knife overall, and I really liked it. But again, it's not a new release for this year. But a shout out to Kungu for this one here. The X-Lock one of this one is new this year. So if you wanted, you could say it, but I would say it's not a new model for this year, which is really what I'm trying to do to help myself eliminate some knives that I would really, put into the contention for Knife of the Year. So that's the Padre. All right, next up, again, it's a model that didn't release this year that I discovered this year with a version that came out this year. So we're talking about the Kaiser Milit. Yes, this came out in fourth quarter of 2024, but it came out in the machine finished S35VN with the raw titanium and the micarta inlay. And this year, Kaiser released the S45VN version of the Milit with the diamond-coated DLC here, DLC handle, and then you have your purple haze fat carbon inlay, which is really quite pretty if you want to take a moment just to appreciate that. A little hard to get these details for whatever reason to show up on camera, but I like the shine to it. It gives a little bit of pop, I would say, to the knife. Titanium pocket clip. A little complaint about the pocket clip, they didn't quite get the angle right, but as I own it and it loosens up, that initial opening has gotten a little bit better. They got a fantastic edge on here. The DLC, you see that diamond finish on there. You can almost see the grind lines on the blade itself. Really cool, nice and thin and slicey. The S45 yen holds a fantastic edge, and this one here, guys, is a guillotine. You got to be very careful with this one. I'm using the little bit of blade here that's exposed to kind of stop it from hitting the nail, and then it falls, but sorry, I slipped off there. But it has a great detent, fall shut action. It's kind of crazy, guys. But again, this is not a brand new model. It's just a new version of an existing model. I got one more of those, and then I promise we have one honorable mention that is a brand new knife, and I'll talk about as to why. So this one here coming from WE Knife Co. This is the Nefarious that was released again. I think it could be third or fourth quarter of last year. Anyone that is confident that they know the release date on this one, just let me know down in the comments below. But you got a beautiful clip point blade. My particular version of the limited knife is a hand rubbed satin finish. You can tell because it's got that finish side to side. Most of your belts are going up and down to do all of the carve out for the blade. You got a really ergonomic handle that is very thin in profile, very gent-esque. You got a speed hole style back spacer that matches your little miniature speed holes that are here on the scales themselves. You got chamfering all around with really nice milling lines to give you a little bit of grip. And then they brought this version out with the lightning anno pivot collar, and then you have the flame anno here on the scale itself, which actually that process in itself lends to giving like a little bit of a matte grip type finish. It's not chalky, but it is a little bit more grippy than like a smooth titanium, and even more so than a little bit of a stonewash titanium. You got a titanium pocket clip that has also been flamed anno that matches this entire setup, and then you got a steel lock bar insert with ceramic bearings in the pivot, giving very smooth action, a very crispy detent, so very satisfying to deploy, and an excellent flipper tab. Great jimping, great location, and just makes the whole knife feel very snappy. All right, one more honorable mention, and then I promise you guys we are going to dive into the list. And this is a new model that was released this year, and that is going to be the Kaiser Hedgehog. I really do like this knife a ton. I really wanted it to be on the list, but the way I did my list, which will make sense here in just a little bit, it just recently got knocked out of the position for the being on the knife of the year list. So on my particular version, because I got the very first run, and they may still make these, but I think they switched to aluminum scales. But you got micarta scales, frag pattern for grip. You got a steel tab here to insert on the pocket clips if it's not riding on this side for left-hand carry. You got the button for their brand new top liner lock, which is the button lock-esque Spyderco compression lock. It's their version of it. And then you got beautiful blade shape here. You got a sheep's foot blade, you got a fuller, you got thumb studs with jimping, a little bit of a spoon there. Now I did send mine out to get it hollow ground, but they don't come like this. They still come with a very phenomenal edge, but the geometry is a little bit more thicker. It feels a little bit more like a working knife. This is definitely much more thin. Now, it is a small knife if you try to use the rearmost scallop section for your finger. For me, I hang off of the back. If you choke up just a little bit, you land on this spot here, and this is really my favorite position to use the knife day to day. And then if I do need some detailed work, it has a little scallop section here that you can kind of get into a trigger pull position and get out on the tip for any type of detailed work that you want to do. Now, the reason I like this knife, it is a nice design. You got good materials at a very good price, and that top liner lock is, to me, what is going to start the wave of getting rid of the button lock compression locks out there, that the button lock plunge locks that you see out there. Sorry, not the compression locks that are out there. So you get a true detent, snap on the deployment, very crispy for all the means of deployment that they have on here. So you got a ton of fidget factor on here, and I really like this one a lot. I think for the money, you're getting phenomenal value. You're getting S35 yen, which seems to be done really well. Micarta or G10 or aluminum now. And you're getting reversible deep carry pocket clip. You're getting a very strong lock mechanism that is very easy to use to regardless of how you use the lock. So it is a very solid knife. So if it's not on the list and I have that many nice things to say about it, what made the list? Let me clear these out and then we'll jump into it. Okay, everything's cleared off the table now. I am actually ready to dive into my list. Let me break down how I decided to do this. So I have categories here to the left to help keep me honest. Under $50, under 100, so 50 to 100, under 200, so 100 and above, up to $200. Under 300, so 2 to 300, right? So we see $50 increments for the lower end, and then $100 increments all the way up to 300. And then for me, 300 and up, which does limit it a little bit because I'm not out here buying $500 to $1,000 knives, but it's just 300 and up, which the Nefarious landed into, I think, at 306. If I remember correctly. So there was something else that I have that is a new release this year that is a little bit more than 300. All right, I have procrastinated enough. I did forget one. Hold on one second. Okay, now I'm ready. Sorry. And a modern traditional. I forgot last year the Hedgehog for me was my modern traditional knife of the year, and I have one already on the list for this year. So let's go ahead and kick it off with that one because I really don't have a price point on it. I just have the category. So what is my modern traditional slip joint of the year? That is going to be the Rosecraft Lusahachi. I really like this one a lot. The walk and talk is excellent. The blade shape on it is really comfortable and ergonomic. The handle is very comfortable and ergonomic. The blade shape clip point is very useful for a lot of cutting tasks. You got steel bolsters with a almost seamless steel back spring between steel scales, and then you have the rosewood scales on here, which I think are very beautiful. You have the classic look of the pin close design here, so not disassembled. It does use stop pin, but the walk and talk on this is really good. So very nice pull. It's a strong pull. It's not an easy pull. And then the sounds that it makes, very crispy. D2 steel on here has performed really well so far. I've not had any corrosion. The D2 seems like it's done very well. I've not had to do a whole lot with it. But again, I'm usually using this to open Amazon, open mail, cut odds and ends here and there for something that I'm willing to pull this out of the fifth pocket for. So keep that in mind with this one. But for me, it is a clear front runner. All the things on this one for me personally, the looks, the build quality, the materials, and the price point, just have this as a very early front runner for modern traditional slip joint of the year. So that's the Lusahachi. All right, so let's go ahead and start at the low end of the spectrum, and then I do have a bonus at the end. The low end of the spectrum is going to be the Kaiser Nice Guy. To me, this is an absolute mind-blowing deal at 49 bucks. You're getting 154 cm blade steel. You're getting G10 with carbon fiber laminate onlay, nested steel liners, reversible deep carry pocket clip, and a very thought out design. It is a flipper only, but it's so fun to fidget with. It's very crispy. The detent is dialed, so you got a nice crispy break. Very hard to fail, which means the blade's not going to accidentally pop out unwanted. And then it has what I would consider one of the thinnest grinds I've seen on a small knife in a long time. It has a nice wedge out here on the tip. You got jimping on the back, which is very nice if you're in the back position. If you have small hands, you can do this and be back here to kind of help with your push cuts if you need to control the direction, or you can kind of gorilla grip it, as I call it, to push cut through heavy, thick, dense material. And then what I really like about this is, and this is how I truthfully use the knife the most, is you have a nice forward finger space here. It's on a choil where you can choke up, and you can use this jimping here, or you can just reposition and get out here and use the jimping on the middle of the spine above the swedge. But I really like this jimping here for the pinch grip detailed work. So if you really need to get out on the tip, do any type of draw or trace cutting, or if you're trying to slice across a package long ways and you don't want the blade to go too far down, this is a great way to control that. But I definitely use this mostly in this position here. It's great for getting into packages, occasionally breaking down a box. It is a little bit smaller. And I would say my honorable mention in this spot would have been the Acorn. I like the Acorn a lot, but the Acorn is 14C 28N, and Kaiser's bumping up the game here with the 154CN, which is superior edge retention and still very, very competitive toughness on there. I know people always go 14C 28N is tougher. It is, and it will cut a long time, but it will not hold a fine edge nearly as well as 154CN, which means less maintenance, less stropping. 14C28N, after you use it, you should strop it to keep that fine edge. And 154CM is plenty tough for your folder. You are going to be hard pressed to find where the steel chips, where it's going to crack or break or anything like that. So for me, as of right now, mid-year review, which I'm a little late on, is going to be the Kaiser. Nice guy for under 50. All right, under $100, this is going to be my personal favorite. There was another knife that was in contention just prior to it, but Kaiser is just swinging for the fences this year's guy. This is the Mini Grouper. The Mini Grouper does come with Nitro V. I would have loved to see 154CM here, but as it is, nothing else around that $50 to $100 price point is going to outpace this one. 14C28N and Nitro V are going to perform very similarly for edge retention and fine edge retention. But this one here, to me, just checks all the boxes. You got a beautiful shilling style blade here, so you're going to trap material and have lots of belly for cutting. It's going to do a lot of tasks very well. You got dual means of deployment with the flipper tab and the thumb stud, which means that you have multiple ways to fidget with this if you want, and or deploy it for use. The detent works very well, and we'll get to why here in just a moment, but it's very crispy, meaning you don't have to worry about this accidentally popping out or not actually getting it, like me even trying to fail it just there. I can't, but accidentally breaking it and it not opening all the way and your fingers being in jeopardy. That's why that detent is important. The flipper tab, I would have liked to see the jimping going a little bit further, because to me they put this here like it is meant to be push button only. I think just carrying the jimping around and taking advantage of that for the light switch would have been nice, but it doesn't prevent it from working well. Nice button here, not too big, not too large. It is recessed while closed. It is popped out while open. I have not run into it at all while using the knife in any way, shape, or form, right-handed or left-handed. They put that button up way up front, and I'm going to get to why that's important in a second as well. So it does prevent your hand from kind of hitting that. And then honestly, I love the top liner lock, which is the compression style lock that they are using now that Spyderco's patent has worn out or expired. But I really do like this left-handed. For you guys that are lefty out there, this to me is very natural to use left-handed with that index finger. It's not awful with the thumb. I mean, it is what it is, but I feel like for me, I'm able to control it a little bit better with that index finger from the left hand. But very nice, very crispy action. Beautiful laminate carbon fiber here. This one is more of your twill style. It is like weave. Sorry, I said twill. Weave style. And it's hard to get that texturing to show up on there, so hopefully the lighting is helping with that. Unlike what you saw on the Nice Guy, this is also weave, but this is finished flat and smooth. This one here, you can still feel where the carbon fiber is weaved together. So it gives a little bit of texturing, which is a nice touch. You got steel nested liners here, steel reversible deep carry clip, and again, it has that top liner lock, which is again the Spyderco style compression lock with a button. That is what is really, really awesome about this particular knife. That really is like the icing on the cake for me. You're getting a really strong lockup that is sandwiched between the stop pin and the back of the blade. So the liner's coming out here and it is clamped into position, making this super, super strong. You don't have to worry about any sort of accidental disengagement while using this knife. It's going to be a great tool that is going to be dependable and reliable. It's got really thin geometry, so it's going to slice well, but it's still got enough girth to it to where it's going to be tough. It shouldn't chip on you. You shouldn't have any, if you're using it proper. Of course, if you're doing things you shouldn't be, there's always that risk with any knife, but proper use, you shouldn't have to worry about that. Very comfortable ergos. You know, what I like about this one, when you look at something like the Vosteed Raccoon and or Hedgehog with that top liner lock, the button's further back, and because the button's back further, they have to enlarge that forge choil and or sharpening choil in order to have clearance. For this one, they have pushed that button way up there and done such a phenomenal job with this design that it stands above the other ones that are in competition with Kaiser for that lock. Like if they do all of theirs like this with this button way up here, this is going to be fantastic. The other thing that I really liked on this is they didn't cheap out and just use stamped bearings. They used multi-row Delrin washer bearings that have multiple rows of ceramic bearings, which make this really smooth, and it's easily able to close shut after you let go of the button, even if it is not in the locked position, meaning it is going to drop very smoothly on its own. So I like all the things about this one. Would love to see a 154 cm version of it. I'd love to see a little bit of a stronger steel as far as edge retention here goes on this one, and maybe they can do that in future runs, or maybe they'll do a premium version if this is well received. But Mini Grouper is definitely one to check out. All right, so that takes care of everything under $100. We're getting ready to move into the more premium end of things, guys. I'm kicking it off with a knife that, for me, fell into the $100 to $200 range, just barely. And this is the knife that did kick out the Vosteed Hedgehog. What knife are we talking about here? Well, we're actually talking about the Tempest Knives Fractus. So the Fractus to me is a really awesome model. It has S90V, so now we're talking super steels. It has titanium with milling, micro milling all around it. And it has your choice of multiple carbon fiber inlays. My particular version has this beautiful Arctic Storm with a dark greenish color and blue color on it with the blacks mixed in. And it really plays with your eyes the way that it reflects the light, guys. You got a reversible pocket clip. Granted, you do need to reach out to Tempest Knives to get the left-handed version. He just got a limited number for this run for people that truly just need the lefty. You got all titanium hardware, ceramic bearings in the pivot, race washers. So that means the washers are grooved, and the little balls ride on those grooved washers that are on the scale side, but the bearings are directly touching the blade there. It gives a nice controlled close here, so it's not going to fall or be a guillotine onto your thumb, which is really nice. You got a nice geometry. You got a forward choil that allows you to choke up. You can use it back in this position here, and you're able to get a really good solid grip for any type of puncture task. And then you're able to get a full choke up there, and you can see my index finger, depending, I guess actually the table helps, keeps it back off of there. So when you're push cutting down, you're able to do that without having to worry about the blade touching you. And then you can trigger pull it, and you got jimping here for control, and then if you need more control out on the tip, you have that as well. It works excellent for the pinch grip, and ultimately the combination of the materials plus the pre-order price of $199, so it just squeaked into this price point, combined with the relief cut, the action, the materials, the fit and finish, and the build quality of this knife, for me, it is my personal favorite to be released under $200 this year. Again, it did bump out two knives actually, but one's going to be here a little bit later, and I don't want to give that away. But the Hedgehog is one of the two that were in the running for me for this category that the Fractus took over. So it'll be interesting to see, honestly, if any of these make it to the end of the year. But this one here, strong impression with me. I really like this design a ton. It's very comfortable to use, and I feel like it flexes into a bunch of roles for me. So awesome knife. That is the Fractus. All right, so now we're going to that $200 to $300 range, guys. If you're enjoying this video, do me a favor, make sure you leave a like when you're finished with it, and if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. And everything's going to be linked down below if you're interested in any of this stuff. I can't really control what is or is not in stock, but I will link it all to where you can find it and or how you can, get in touch with someone to find out if more will be available depending on what it is that you might be interested in. But the $200 to $300 price point knife is going to be the Vosteed Psyop. This one here comes in a couple of different versions, but this one that I have has the gunstock pattern here on the handle. I think that's really kind of cool looking. Geared back spacer. You have jimping on the back of the blade. Your blade is Elmax steel. You have a nice drop point with a swedge on the top. You got a very thin geometry here behind the edge. The edge is done really well from the factory. You got a nice choke up point here that allows you to get into like a trigger pull if you need to use it. Truth be told, my main position when I use this knife is kind of right here. And then when my thumb wraps around the frame here, I'm plenty far back off the blade. It allows my thumb, the bend on my thumb here, to kind of be a guide, keep me from going into the sharpening tool as I push cut through this one. It's got nice belly, so it's going to slice and cut very well, especially on tabletop. You do have a scallop section here, and you can choke pack on that, but to me it kind of puts me too far away from the edge. So what I end up kind of doing is using the middle finger middle finger there, and kind of choking up into this position here. I got plenty of space for my hand to fit onto the blade, and they do make a contoured version with no milling work here, and I've heard people say that they actually like that a little bit better. You got a titanium pivot collar that's been anodized blue, titanium screws back here. This one also using that Spyderco style compression lock. They are calling it the top liner lock. There's review and disassembly out there if you're interested in that. But it does work well. One minor nitpick with this one is the button should have been a little bit bigger, because irregardless of how much it moves over, you still have to push it to the furthest point to get it to clear the blade in order to close it. The offset for that is I've just kind of gotten used to swinging it closed almost like a crossbar lock if you had a Spyderco and or a Benchmade bug out that's not broken in yet, and it's on those washers, and you kind of have to pull down the crossbar lock and close it. That's kind of what I'm doing with this one here. I'm doing it a little bit dramatic and aggressive, but a slow close here, you can kind of control when it shuts with that button. It's nice. The opening holes work well. You got a nice pill shape that's easy to reverse flick, easy to thumb flick, and the front flipper, because it does have a true detent ball there to keep the knife closed and locked into place pretty securely, works really well too. You got a nice titanium milled pocket clip. This one here, it's got a nice ramp on it, goes in and out of the pocket well, goes all the way to the furthest point, but it's not deep carry, not reversible in this model. They might change that in the future. Vosteed's pretty good actually about that if they get the feedback and there's enough demand from lefties to request a lefty clip or that it can be reversed. They kind of changed that. They did that with a model here recently that we're going to be talking about in a little while. I really like LMAX steel too. It's really been impressive how solid of a steel it is. To me, it's kind of like your S35, S45 yen type steel, but you know, there's a different batter here and different properties and traits being emphasized on this steel. But for EDC, it's really nice. It is a machine satin finish, which is a little bit more polished. You don't get as much of the grind lines, but it's still a really pretty finish. But I really do like this one a lot. So far this year, it is my favorite. I also think this one, I did install skiffs. I think this is the first knife that we're encountering today that I've installed skiff bearings on. But I think it came with Delrin washers. Don't hold me to that. It could have been stamped bearings. I like the Delrin a little bit better because it's fully encased bearings, so it doesn't have like as much ability, or there's not as much of a likelihood for it to be able to have any sort of side-to-side play. But I think it's a good-looking knife. I love the attention to details on this one. That is the PSYOP. All right, guys, we're getting down to the last two before I reveal those again. Thank you and shout out to my channel members out there. I'm probably going to wrap this up at the end of the video since it is going to be a little bit of a longer one. But that extra layer of loyal support that you guys provide to me as a channel member is greatly appreciated. We will be having a giveaway here soon. I hope to get this up and bump it to the front of the line so that you see this soon. But I'm hoping mid to end of July we will do that members only giveaway as a way to show my appreciation to you for being a subscribed member. But let's keep this list going. Guys, we are coming into the 300 and up list. There's only 2 of them in my collection that are making it onto the list. One just barely made it over, and the other one I did splurge. I've had many of their knives, and I've really enjoyed all of them. This one, for me, which is really shocking because I've enjoyed a lot of their designs and a lot of their models, is far and away my favorite from them. So we are talking about the Vero Engineering Nova. I just really like this design a ton. I think it's a great looking knife. I love that this is a little bit thinner on the body than some of their other knives. You know, I feel like some of their other knives are a little bit blocky. They do have the, I think it's the Impulse Slim, and I think there's another one out there that's kind of thin as well. But I really like the design aesthetics. Instead of an opening hole, he uses an opening pocket. The pocket actually is cut well so that you actually are able to really get a grip inside of it for that thumb and reverse flick. And he did add a front flipper on here. I will say a little chunky, so you really want to make sure that you got a nice grip on that pocket clip with the tips of your fingers before you flip that front flipper out. Before you use the front flipper, I guess is the better way to say that. Very nice action. Good access to the lock bar. It's chamfered. You can get in there very easily for the disengagement of the lock, regardless of what method that you like to use for disengagement. Mine is still kind of breaking a little bit. That's because when I got it, I immediately threw skiffs in it because the washers that the skiff bearings ride on didn't have a track yet, so it is still breaking in. And I also have not thrown any thread locker on there because I did order a dress kit on it, and I'll show that off at a later time, so you're actually getting to see it in its final form and how it comes when you buy just the knife. The dress kit is just some accessories to kind of dress it up if you're into that kind of thing. Some people are not into that thing. The pocket clip, to me, you know, I think that's one of the things from Vero I'd like to just see something a little bit different. I feel like this pocket clip, you could pick it up and put it on any of his knives. I'd like to see something, you know, just a little bit different far as style and execution, but the pocket clip works really well. It goes in and out of the pocket nicely. It does have good retention on there, so it's not going to fall out. If you're active and it's in your pocket, you don't have to worry about it falling out easily. He did, even with the full length backspacer here, include a spot for your lanyard, so that if you like lanyard beads, you could put that on there. I'm not a lanyard person. The stone wash on the titanium feels good. The ergos on this thing are excellent. It is very comfortable, very hand filling, and I like that on a knife that I'm going to EDC in hard use. I opted for the belt satin. I believe the stone washed would have been a little bit more affordable. And obviously the Damasteel, I think the DLC is the same price as this one. And then I think the Damasteel is probably like twice the price, but I'm not a Damasteel type person. Me personally, I'm really excited about this Magna Cut. It is coming in at 62 HRC, a little lower. My favorite still being the Tactile Maverick, coming in at 63 to 64 hardness Rockwall. That to me is the ideal and sweet spot. But honestly, the 62 has really been performing well. I haven't noticed any loss of edge retention. It has been very slicey. I have not had any chipping or anything like that. But this has been my favorite one for 300 and up so far this year, the Vero Nova. All right, last but not least is its own category, and it's reserved for a knife that is innovating. So we talked a lot about top liner locks today, which is the Spyderco style compression lock that you've seen on some Kaisers and Vosteeds. But the one that has impressed me the most, meaning that it has felt like it was executed the best, and the fit and finish on it were excellent, and the knife design itself also, in conjunction with all of that, really resonated with me. That is going to be the Vosteed Enchilo. So the Enchilo has LMAX steel. It comes with smooth or frag aluminum, at least in the Kickstarter version that I picked up on. The lock mechanism is similar to how that top liner lock works, and I don't know that you'll be able to see it here, but you can kind of see the button is pushing the liner away on the opposite side, and check my disassembly video for that. And then what it's doing is the lock is very much like the compression lock, going into this swedge here onto the top of this, you can't see it because there's a cover, but at the top of the pivot button there. So it's another secure lockup method. I did do spine whack testing on it, and it passed with flying colors. To me, I operate this as well, like I do with the top liner locks from Vosteed, but from Kaiser I don't have to do that. It's just going to fall shut. This one here is more of a controlled close. You see how I just staggered the button there and then pushed it to let it finish closing. Probably not as noticeable there. But I do swing it. I find that for me, swinging these close very consistently closes it, and I don't have an issue with it. Now, I haven't been carrying it for a few days, so my timing's a little off, but like once you get the timing down on it, and you realize how much strength you need to put into it, it's very easy to open and close. It's got a nice keyhole shaped opening hole, so thumb deployment, very good. Reversing, excellent. The reverse flick is excellent. I mean, that is the most satisfying. It does have a tall flipper tab here for the front flipper, so that works very nicely. And then you got a low profile regular flipper tab, but it's got tight aggressive jimping on there, so you're able to put that index finger in there and rip, and it is very satisfying to deploy. You have a detent ball, which again is part of what helps keep it closed. It's also got that, again, nested liner in here that locks up in the middle, relief cuts all throughout, very comfortable ergonomically. You got a fantastic, sorry, mine's a little dirty, it's a user. I do need to clean it though. It's got a fantastic sheep's foot blade here. You got some belly, you got a low tip here for those detailed cuts. You got a little Ford choil here for choking up, so if you needed to use that for like detailed, again, opening packages, and then again for pinch grips to get out on the tip. And cut whatever it is that you're opening that you don't want to push too far into. Good weight on it, LMAX steel with aluminum and or micarta. I don't think they did anything in G10, and coming in around, I think this is 170, which for what you're getting, I think great steel, good handle materials, excellent lock with multiple deployment methods. Just make it a really fantastic knife, and they executed this button so well. Now I do admit the pivot locks do feel like they're a little bit more chunky, but I felt like the Riot was small. I think it was the PLXT, if I remember right. I might have the acronym backwards, but it was too small for me, and it was really, really chunky. Whereas this one, it is a little thick, but the thinness here, and then they, brought out the handle far enough for me to get 4 fingers onto it, actually make this very comfortable, and I feel like I could absolutely hard use this knife. But that is my list. My most innovative knife of the year, again, being the Vosteed Enchilo. My 300 and up for me personally is going to be the Vero Engineering Nova. My 250, my 200 to 300 for me is the Vosteed Psyop. It is just an excellent knife for the money, guys. It's going to be really hard to beat that one. Then at the 1 to 200, for me personally, I love the Fractus. I think Tempest did a fantastic job with this design. Casey just absolutely hitting a home run. For me, the $50 to $100 price point, 100% without question, is got to be the Mini Grouper from Kaiser. Just an absolute phenomenal design. The execution that they did with the top liner lock actually to me is more impressive than the Vosteed, and Vosteed did a great job. I'm not trying to knock their top liner lock. I'm trying to emphasize how good Kaiser did. I'm glad they didn't rush it out. I think they did a fantastic job. The under 50 to me, and also you could say small knife of the year, is going to be the Nice Guy. I just think it's a very gentlemanly-esque knife, very not unoffensive, or not offensive, and it has really great materials and it works really well. And then for me, my modern traditional slip joint knife of the year is going to be the Rosecraft. So this is the mid-year. I know this is a longer video, guys, sorry, but this is my contenders at mid-year that are in the category. I have it cataloged, so we'll see what happens between now and the end of the year. I will be curious to see what stays on the list and what does not. So these will be remaining in the inventory for sure throughout the remainder of the year. And I really am not offended by that, because some of these I think I'm just going to keep in my personal collection. Some may end up making it to giveaways after that. I may do like an end of year blowout. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. I love you guys. I hope you have a fantastic week. I'll catch you all on the next one. Peace.